All right, magic makers. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Allie Cash, and she is a health and wellness coach. She is also a former competitor, and so she's really more about how do we shift that mindset. And so, for someone who myself has been a former competitive, most people think that it is all about, how many, squatting as much and going to the gym for X number of hours, and it's how much you eat. Yeah, that all plays a role, but it's literally the mindset that keeps you going, that mindset that's going to overpower willpower, overpower motivation. It is your mindset that's going to keep you going. And she brings that into her coaching practice. So I'm really excited to chat with Miss Allie Cash all about the how do your thoughts affect your health. Welcome to the show, Allie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And so, I wanted to talk about this because, like you, I competed, and
Mm.
for so many people, they put us on a pedestal. They think that we're just like these kind of like untouchable. We have this like, this kind of like godlike um thing about us, because if you think about it, only 1 to 2% of the world ever pushes their bodies to that level.
Mm.
And I know for me, it was never about how many carbs I had. It wasn't, I'm never about how much cardio I did. Although, in the moment, I thought that was the end all be all. But if I look back, hindsight's always 2020 and sometimes smacks you in the face and calls you stupid. It was being able to shift my mindset to go into like it's game time mode. And did you have that same kind of like, realization for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question like that. So I thank you. 100%. I grew up as an athlete. So for me, going into a physique competition really reactivated, like you mentioned, that focus, that
Mm,
mental drive, to take myself from where I was at in that moment and get myself to whatever that goal or that outcome was. But it is definitely, it's all about the mindset. Obviously, the strategy is very important as well, but the strategy only works as well as you're going to either adhere to it,
oh,
how much you're going to show up for. And I tell clients this all the time because I get that question of what's the best fitness plan or what's the best diet or nutrition strategy or XYZ. And while there are factors that obviously that differs depending on someone's current physiology, their goals, whatever they're trying to work toward, any health challenges they're trying to overcome. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how good the strategy is if you can't adhere to it and really lock in and focus on it. So one of the for me, one of the biggest mindset shifts that really helped me in that particular point in my life, and it's something that when I feel like I'm getting a little discombobulated in my own health and wellness or my own business or whatever it is, I try to bring myself back to that. But it's setting that intention and setting that goal that you want to achieve and then forget about it. Stop
mm,
focusing on that end result and focus on whatever step you need to take right now, whether that's in the next minute, the next hour, the day, and focus on taking those steps. And that's where I think trusting in the process and having a strategy that works comes into play, because then you can just focus on executing on that. So stop
mm.
obsessing about how much further you have to go. And I think that like you've mentioned, locking in on that focus and like being an athlete or a competitor, like when you go into a race or a game or some kind of competition, you're not worried about what game or who you're going to be competing against, 2, 3 games from now. You are focused on
Yeah.
what you have to do in that moment to, come out victorious. And so if you can approach every action and every day with that same type of mindset, like I think you're going to get to your goal and you're not going to be so obsessed and so stressed out in the process.
You know what? You said, I mean, I don't even think you realize what you said because sometimes, I'm speaking, I black out. So you said some like really good stuff. So I have to like I take notes on everything
I
that
love that.
when I'm because like there's you said things that like let's unpack this. First, strategy, right?
Mm.
So many clients come to us and think we're Maytag, like they are a washing machine. And here I am, fix me right
Yeah.
now. And you're like, you don't need to be fixed because I can give you the best strategy under the planet. But if it's something that you're not in a place right now to adhere to see it all the way through to, or the moment life happens, the moment life happens, you look at the plan, you're like, well, I can't go to the gym for X number of hours like you used to, or I'm traveling, there's no way I can meal prep. Then all of a sudden you're lost and you're just like spinning out of control. But so I love how you talked about it. It's that you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you can't execute on it, you can't stick to it long term. What does that strategy even mean for you?
Right. 100%. Yeah. And you just hit like all the realistic real world examples of how that plays out for
Yeah.
people.
And you probably experience this too. I have a lot of long-term clients, and I have clients who came to me before they had kids. We worked through having kids. Now they had kids, and now they're like, Kim, I could just go back to what I did 5 years ago. And I'm like, girlfriend, like, how many kids you have 5 years ago? What's your life look like now compared to look like 5 years ago? Because I know 5 years ago, I had a very different life.
100%.
But also I look back, and you might be able to say the same thing. Do you look back 5 years ago and be like, oh, hell no, I'm not going back there?
Totally. Like for a couple different reasons. Like I try to be one of those people that never like lives with regret. And so while I look back and think, wow, that was a really great point in life, or look at what I accomplished, like I appreciate the growth process that we go through in all aspects of life. And so I try to keep that perspective of like being really grateful for where I'm at, even if there is that time where, so for instance, when I was a competitor, I wasn't really coaching other women. I wasn't running my own business. I didn't have other ventures that I was trying to seek in life. I worked a corporate job. I worked from home. So I had a very flexible schedule. And so I didn't have a lot of like external stress. And so
so you could come and go as you please. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that's not the case now either. So I do, it's funny that you say that, because I try to keep that same perspective. But yeah, and I know we hear, especially on social media, that everybody has 24 hours in a day. And that really gets on my nerves, honestly, because we do all have 24 hours. And can most of us be better at prioritizing time and managing it? For sure. But people have different responsibilities. People have access to different resources that either give them more time or not. And that looks different, like you said, depending on what stage of life you're in. So I don't really think it's fair to say that, we all have the exact same ability to show up in the same capacity, depending on what we have going on.
Right. But, and I love that kind of segue here is that, I do, when I hear everyone has the same 24 hours, it just makes me like want to punch you in the face, because it brings me to violence, because it's like, I look at, you have clients too, you look at the real world and you're like, okay, so I have a 40-year-old mom who has 2 kids and dealing with her elderly parents. So help me carve out the 2 hours you're prescribing of workout.
Right.
Or the new mother who's like, girl, I'm barely lucky if I get spit up off my shirt before I head out to work, so it's like, as a coach, and I know I get it, like, it's very easy to be hardcore, figure it out, make the time, where I feel as a coach, we have to like come at it and say, what is your life? And help them accept their life. Because, we all get caught up in, it's us. We suck. I can't do this, blah, 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 blah. And the whole like spiral of negativity, just however you spiral out, you're caught in that spiral. And so again, thoughts tell us. And, I'd love to hear your feedback on this, is that, you grew up in, gym culture, diet culture, like I did. And it was very ingrained that workouts were about time. Your workout should be 90 minutes, 2 hours. It should look like this. If it doesn't look like this, girl, I don't got nothing for you. And so now, as we kind of like, real life, other obligations come up, how do you start with, a client who's like, wow, I used to be able to go to the gym 2 hours a day, and now I'm lucky if I can get 30 in, or however much time they say they can get in.
Yeah. So I think for me, when I'm working with people, especially at the beginning stages, it's always so important to have that level of expectation.
Yeah.
So whether that's like, hey, I don't expect you to go to the gym for 2 hours. I don't really prescribe 2 hour long workouts, even if you had all day to go to the gym, because
Right.
honestly, I love the gym, but I don't want to be there for 2 hours a day. So I'm not going to expect you to do that. But also, what are the expectations that you're placing on yourself, and are those
Yes.
realistic? And then how does that actually match up with your goal? I don't like to discourage people away from the goals that they have, but I do like to be straight up with people on going back to like a fitness competitor, what that looks like and what it takes to get that physique. And if that's something someone's interested in, great. But most people don't realize the sacrifice and the commitment and what it takes to get there. And so just educating clients and really
Yeah.
sitting down with them. And one thing I've started doing recently with a client of mine who is also a coach, but she is more in the she's kind of in the mindset. She does a lot of identity work with people, and she really helps people uncover their values. And so
Yeah.
we've been doing a lot of work around like, okay, what's your value? You value
Mm.
freedom or discipline, and how can we take those core values and translate that into what we're doing with fitness and nutrition so that it becomes something that you don't just view as, oh, I've got to do this thing today, but hey, I'm
Yeah.
doing this thing because it ties into my value and allows me to then, however, show up differently in my life or experience something in a way that is aligned with the life that I want to live.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot, because it's like especially people who back in the day, they were able to go to the gym regularly, and their identity was the gym. Their
Mm,
identity was they were the person, oh, Allie goes to gym all the time. And so it just also became reinforced in your psyche that
mm.
Allie gym girl. And as you kind of go through life, Allie gym girl's like, girl, Allie gym girl ain't got time no more to be Allie Allie gym girl. So it's like we get caught up in that identity of
Yeah.
Allie gym girl. So I really like how, ask, is gym a value now? And then what does that value look like when it comes to your identity?
100%. I feel like you just opened a whole can of worms with that statement, because
Yeah.
I now I'm thinking about it, and I feel like from a societal perspective, we are so taught to assign our identity to things like that. Like, and
Yeah.
I think that's for people who are athletes too. Like, I always tell people when I competed, like when I was in the groove and I was in that zone, it wasn't hard. But after the fact,
Yeah.
that was hard because that was part of my identity. Or like your
Yes.
profession, how much money you make, what your title is, and like who would you really be if that wasn't there anymore? So I think that's a
Right.
great question for everyone to look at.
It is. And like, because I know that, when I was competing, it was like, blinders on, and it was like full speed show. And then when there wasn't a show, I was like,
What's
what
going
do
on?
I like? Who, like, I didn't have I didn't know how to go to the gym as a regular person. I was like, what do regular people do? Do I go to a class? Do I not go to the gym? Do I still go to like, I didn't understand it. So, and maybe you had the same thing. I had these
Mm.
huge ebbs and flows where like I was at the gym, I was on it. And as soon as my show was over, I was like, I'm on vacation.
Yes. I literally actually went on a 3-week vacation after my last show. And
Yeah.
I was
Like,
like, I guess I'm not going to do anything.
yeah, I was like, and I remember I was like, it was right before show, and I was talking to my coach. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do anything for a month after the show. She looked at me like I said that, like, I worship the devil. Like, I was just like, because I was exhausted, and I
Yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
needed like that mental, like,
Mm.
and so I get it when like, athletes are like, after their season is over, or athletes after their career's over, they're like, what do you do? Like, especially,
Right.
professional athletes, like they've been doing this for decades.
Mm.
And they're like, I don't know how to not go to, I'm not going to practice. Like, what?
Right. Yeah. Or even like not pushing yourself in that same, that's
Yeah.
something that I like when I go to the gym now. And if I am having one of those days where I'm like, okay, I only have 45 minutes, but I know what I want to get through, there's like that part of my brain that's like, no, we do at least 4 sets of everything. And I'm like, but maybe I only have time for 3 sets today. Like, but I'm
Yes.
like, is it good enough? Is it enough?
Oh
Oh,
my God. Ladies, I mean, how many of you are just like sitting here and being like, oh my God, that's me. That's me. Yes, I was so stuck in that. And I know I have a client right now who I'm like, what if less is more? And we're really kind of focusing in on that, because she's a classic overtrainer, and
oh,
she's like, this is what my goal is, this is what my goal is. But I was like, but I'm looking at your life, and I'm like, your goal and your life are like so out of alignment that I'm trying to say what we can control. And right now I can control you at the gym. And it's her identity of like, you go to the gym for this amount of time, you do 4 sets, you do 6 sets, you must lift so that you can't lift, wash your hair the next day.
Right.
And it's so, it's her identity. Like she values being that person who everyone looks at the gyms being like, damn, look at Susie go, right? Like what she's doing. Her name's not Susie. I changed the name to protect the innocent.
I love it, but no, I totally agree. And I think that that's where, as coaches, as clients ourselves, because, we're always whether we're our own client or actually working with someone, I think that's where it's important to start, commending people on, hey, like it is honorable to also take a rest day. Like that is important. And I think too, the more that we go and the more that spotlight gets kind of shown on this, like, hey, like less most of the time is more, the more that we also can see and talk about how overtraining and under recovering and under fueling really actually has physiological adaptations that are going to make it harder for you in the long run. So like, let's just not go there.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that like for many of us, we were at the forefront of diet culture and we bought into the harder, faster, stronger mentality, like hook, line, and sinker. And especially in the, fitness competitor world, you were so indoctrinated in the gym culture. Like if I didn't get my certain grams of whatever in, if I missed a workout, like I might as well have like, started World War III. Like that's how like your psyche was just so in tuned with like getting to the goal.
100%. It's funny that you say that. I actually literally had a tank top that said harder, faster, stronger at one point.
Right.
So
I mean, I feel like there was like, I feel like every competitor had or like you would go to the shows and all the booths had like, lift harder, don't be weak, or don't suck and go to the gym. Like, it's all of these like, fucked up mindsets that like made you like, come to this, like, if I am not doing all the things, I suck, right? Like I am not like, I'm not gonna even, I shouldn't even show up to my show. I shouldn't even like try to hit the show if I'm not doing all the things. And and I like that because it comes back to the word adherence, right? It's like and you talked about this, like, it comes back to adherence, and you also talked about like we all have a goal, right? My goal is whatever your goal is, but are the steps you're trying to get there, are they realistic for you right now?
Right. Exactly. And timeline. Like that's another thing with the marketing in this space. Like and don't get me wrong, I've run, 6-week, 8-week, 12-week challenges, and that's fine to like get people, excited and ignite that like, re-entry into potentially a routine that is something maybe they can stick with. But I have clients come to me and they sometimes only want to sign on for like 3 months, which is fine, but they have this expectation that like, well, if I'm not to my goal in 3 months, then I'm going to dip out. And I'm like, yo, like, that's not always how it works, especially if we need to, like, if you're not at a foundational level, extremely healthy and, have very minimal stress, it's probably likely that we're not going to get you there in 3 months anyway. And I'm like, so it's that like the adherence, I feel like also ties into that marketing of like these quick fixes and all of this stuff. And so, I'm like, I had a friend come to me once and she was like, I need to lose this belly fat before my trip in 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, girl, like, first off, like probably not going to happen. But if I gave you a plan that would basically move the needle as much as it's going to move, you are going to hate me. You're going to hate yourself and you're going to hate your life. And it's probably not going to happen. And it didn't happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I get that because I get those emails too, and I'm like, I'm not that coach. Like, and it pains me because it's like you want to educate people that it's like the reason why you need to stay consistent and figure out, as it goes back, what's your strategy? Because a lot of us go on these like sprinting diets, I like to call them. You sprint to your vacation or the wedding or to whatever the event is. And then, just like we talked about after the event, we're like, I'm on vacation. And then, it's hard to get back on if we're always constantly like up and down on this. And, let's be honest, it's the up and down that's probably causing us to have this metabolic change. Uh, Eventually, your body's going to be like, fuck you. Like, I know what you're doing. I ain't going. I'm going to sit here, smoke a cigarette, and have some scotch while you go crazy.
I love that. I feel like my body's definitely said that a couple of times.
No, I mean,
Uh,
and I hope again, people listening, they're like, yeah, my body's right now drinking scotch as we speak.
Scotch on a Monday morning is my
Right.
favorite.
I mean, why not? I mean, if you're
Right.
gonna have scotch, you should have it all year,
That's
all the time. There's no
right.
5 o'clock when your body's giving you the finger.
That's so good. Oh, that's so great. I love that so much. I think you're totally right. One of the things that coming from, previously working in corporate many years ago and then being in the finance space is I kind of, as a side passion, love investing and learning about that kind of stuff. And so I tell people like, have you heard of compound interest? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, that is what just not doing anything drastic, but just showing up and doing what you can and taking small steps every day. Like that is compound interest. And if you can see it in your bank account, you can see it in your investment portfolio, that's going to get you much further in a year, 2 years, 3 years than doing these crazy things that keep you on that ebb and flow.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I had a woman on last week. We did an interview, and she talked about mind math, and she talked about
Mm.
how, it's us, can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll link it in the show notes. But she was like basically talking about, it was like how our feelings bring us down this like equation, and depending on how we deal with our feelings depends on what equation output we get. And I was like, you know what? For me, as much as I am an emotional person, I'm also logical. And like
Mm.
for me, when I need to see like if I take this action with certainty, right? If I go to the gym for 30 minutes versus 2 hours, am I still going to get the same amount of results?
Mm-hmm.
And so, this whole mind map thing, I was like, oh my God, I was like, this is fabulous.
I love that. That's awesome. I love that you said certainty because like that is one of our, core human needs is
Yeah.
to have some level of certainty with what we're doing.
Yeah. And I also like when, going back to our original part of the conversation, you were like, set your intention. Like, so decide this is what I want.
Mhm.
And then what's the next step? Because I think, like you said, so many of us get caught on like, I'm trying to lose 30 pounds before my vacation.
Right.
And you're just like 30 pounds and you step on the scale and you're down a half an ounce and you're just
Mhm.
like, it's not working. And all of a sudden all the drastic police start running around in your head.
100%. That's a really great example because I see that a lot with clients. I think, first step once you set that intention or that goal is please, by all means, give yourself enough time. If you don't know how much time is realistic, ask someone, ask a coach, if you're seeking help from someone. But again, focusing on the actions as opposed to the outcomes during the process. I have clients that, to be honest, we don't even weigh them. We don't do those
Yeah.
metrics maybe once a month, but I find that, and I like to gauge this when I'm first having a consultation with someone and then when I start working with them. But if I can tell that someone doesn't have the ability to kind of remove the emotion and remove themselves from that metric or that outcome, then sometimes we don't even look at that. Like I'll do progress photos, we'll look at biofeedback, we focus on other key indicators of progress in the process of getting them to their goal. Because again, like you said, our feelings take us down, a certain path, which is then going to produce certain actions and certain results. And so if I know that there's someone who is going to step on the scale, even if it's 1 pound more, like we can gain a pound in a matter of hours purely from what we've eaten, stress, lack of sleep,
Right.
things like that. And so if I find that someone is someone who's going to micromanage that so much, then I don't even
Yeah.
do that with them, to be honest.
That's a really, what you brought up another great thing. Micromanaging, and
Mm.
I feel like as a coach, and you probably feel the same way, is that as a coach, you're gonna tell me, hey Kim, I'm feeling hungry in the afternoon. And I'm gonna be like, okay, try adding, more protein to the meal prior.
Mhm.
get back to me, let me know. And a couple weeks go by, you don't hear from them. Then you finally go, hey, Allie, what's going on? How's that hunger in that after your third meal? And then they're like, oh, I haven't had a chance, but I'm still hungry. What should I do? And you're just like, so it's, for many people, they want us to always give them something else to do. But I was like, why would I have you try something else if you didn't try the first thing?
Oof, that hits me at like a soul level.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that is a battle.
It is a battle because it's like, as a, and I get it. Like for me, I had to change the way I ate. I ate the same way for a freaking decade. And it
Mm.
was just like, it's kind of like how you drive home and you go, say you're going to the same place, say you're going to work, and you make a right out of your driveway, left at the end of the street, and you get yourself to work. But what if I asked you to make a left out of your driveway? Your body's so like ingrained to turn right, turn right, to turn right. And I'm asking you tomorrow, turn left. It's hard. It's challenging. And for many people, I'm like, if you didn't turn left, why would I add another step to that?
Right. Right. 100%. I think they're challenged by that because it forces them to like work different neural pathways.
Yeah.
And I sometimes, honestly, when I'm in that situation, I take the exact same approach as you, and I think that's beautiful. And sometimes I'll even present a question back to someone or a client, where I'm like, if you want to continue doing what you're doing again, but you want this result, that's where we're again, not matching up. So, because I've had that same situation happen where I recommend something, it doesn't get implemented, doesn't get implemented, but come check-in time, they're feeling really down about something, or there's frustration around why they haven't made it maybe as far as they felt they should.
Mm,
And so I have to come back and say, okay, we're still doing the same things that we've been doing though. So like,
right.
again, it's like that. I think it's Albert Einstein quote of insanity. Like, we continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. But yeah, I mean, sometimes for me, I just have to give someone that one action item and really encourage them to make that like the focal point of everything we're doing together, even if that means like pushing something else to the side in that moment. I'm like, set a reminder on your phone, put an
Right.
alarm,
Yeah.
whatever. Think about it before you go to bed and first thing when you wake up, whatever it is that you can do that's going to continue to keep that at the forefront. Paste a sticky note on your mirror, on your fridge, whatever. Like I deal with this with supplements a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who, recommends a lot of supplements, but when they're needed, and I have clients who just really struggle to take them. And I'm like, okay, where do you go when you're making, your lunch? And they're like, I'm in my
Right.
kitchen. I'm like, put them on your kitchen counter. Where are
Right.
you looking? Are you using your toaster, your oven? Where are you, where do you keep your bowls? Put them under the freaking cabinet that you keep the bowls in. So when you open it up
Right.
to grab your bowl or your plate, you see it, or, whatever it is, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be, yeah.
No, and for I always, I can't remember what psychologist started the whole habit cue thing, but it's like
Mm.
you need a trigger, right? The
Right.
trigger is what's going to get you to the next action. And the easiest way to have a trigger is to do something you already do. It's like I always tell people, I'm like, I drink a cup of coffee every day. So if I need to do something, put something by my coffee maker because I'll be like, oh, what's this? While I'm waiting for my coffee to brew.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. That's a double whammy too, because once you have your coffee, you're like, I am ready to go. Let's do this.
Right.
Like,
But it's like if I really need something done, or I put it in my bathroom. And people are like, that's so weird. I'm like, it works.
right.
I
Yeah.
can't
You're not
judge.
going to say that when you have the result.
Right. I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, I let you drink water while I'm getting dressed. And I'm like, I just put my water bottle in my bathroom at night and it just is right there. It's like I see it first thing in the morning and I start drinking it while I'm getting dressed. And so it's like I already know that I got to, and like most people go to the bathroom when you first wake up.
Right. I
So
love
it's just
that.
so it's I always tell people like for as a coach, we're trying to take away the resistance, take away the friction. And so it's like as we ask a lot of questions as a coach. I know I do because it's like I can tell you what to do all day long, but Allie, if you're like, yeah, I'm not fucking doing that, like, then it doesn't matter if I tell you what to do. Like, there's millions of things I can tell you what to do, but it's
Right.
like, what is going to work for you right now in your life, in your season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's 100%. I feel like my when I'm talking with my clients, I feel like we're playing a game of 20 questions all the time because I'm the same
Yes.
way. But yeah, that's what people don't understand is A, as coaches, our goal is to help you also come to your own solutions. But like we have to understand, and I try to coach people on this all the time, like going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, it doesn't, it's not just about what your goal is and how we can get you there. It is what is going on in your life. What does that look like with your relationships, your
Yes.
career, like mindset, emotions? Like I've had clients who will do biofeedback and they're like, my stress levels were much higher last week. And I'm like, okay, well, did something happen? Is there any life changes, anything going on? And it's like, yeah, my grandma died. And I'm like, okay, well, that's really important. That really
Yeah.
impacts not only like what you maybe physically can show up to do because of time constraints, or now there's these other things that you're dealing with, but emotionally, what you're carrying and what you're working through. And, that's also something to consider. So I think that I'm not really sure where my brain was going off on that tangent, but
No, I liked it because it's like, as we, this whole conversation, it's been about your thoughts, your physical health. And I think so many of the women that you coach, the women that I coach, they're doers, right? They're doers. Like, I just want to get shit done.
Amen.
And we discount I got a lot of shit going on at work, but it's just work. It's just what it is. And they discount the toll that it takes on their body, where they're like, I need this workout to help me manage what's going on at work. And you're like, okay, to some extent, but maybe the workout changes a little bit. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe instead of like trying to squat a Buick, it's just body weight stuff.
1,000%. I love that you said that because I see people that are, it's two sides of the coin, right? Like you have those people who are like, well, this is my stress relief. I have a client right now who's
Yeah.
very much like she loves the gym and that is her outlet. And same thing. It's like, okay, great. Let me get you to the gym. But exactly like, let's just walk today or let's do something different because
Right.
like physically, I don't want to be counterproductive with you. And I don't want to further, bring down the energy levels, the ability to recover, because I think a lot of people don't realize how much your body spends on energetically trying to recover from things going on in your life, tragedies, traumas, emotions, all of that
Right.
stuff. And until you really feel that and you're impacted that yourself, you're like, you just think that, oh, okay, these are my workouts, this is like, we compartmentalize too. I think
Yes, very much
that is,
so.
yeah, that's something that we can see that in Western medicine where we compartmentalize systems of the body and act as though they don't work together when in reality they all
Right.
work together. And we do that in life as well. We do it in everything. We think that, okay, yeah, work is work, I keep it there. When I come home, I don't bring it with me, but most of us do bring it with us. Or when you're going through something in a relationship and you think that, okay, I'm at work or I'm at the gym, I'm focusing on myself, but subconsciously in the back of your mind and in your body, we feel that still, and that still shows up with everything we do.
Yeah, it's that's like, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think it's the whole compartmental zone that like they, you think like once I like get in the car and I drive away from work, it's over. But we're still like replaying the conversations that maybe we had or we should have had. And our body has no way of really turning that off.
Oh, yes, 100%.
So for many of us, even though we say we want to turn it off, like we still have to process that stuff. And as our body's processing it, it's taking away the resources that we want to apply to our workout. And so now our resources are divided. And I don't know if many people understand this, but our brains take a lot of freaking, cycles. And if I'm like worrying through something, it's really hard for my body to give me the energy I need to lift, the
Mm-hmm.
energy I need to digest my food. And so, yeah, I get it. Yeah, look, movement is really good. Movement is powerful. Movement, yes, can be a stress reduction when you're not in a stressed out state.
100%. I always equate it to like a computer. Like I'm sitting here having this wonderful conversation with you, but my computer is still running programs in the background.
Yes.
Do whatever it does. I don't know what that is, but it's doing something.
Magic.
So,
I believe in magic.
exactly. So yeah, our brains, I think you said that beautifully because they are, it's the same way. And sometimes with clients, just to go a little deeper, like we start digging into things, and what we find is that like, okay, there is some trauma, some emotional things, whether that's from childhood, grief, loss, things like that. And there's been times where I've had to say, like, I don't think your challenge right now is the workout or even your job or nutrition. It's like you're still carrying that burden, and that is still playing in the back of that, that subconscious mind, and whether you're choosing to release it or it's now getting stored and it's affecting everything that's going on from that point forward. And so sometimes I honestly send people to therapy as well, and or try to help them find the resources they need to work through that, because I see that affects so many women. And as women, people in general, but women especially, that's typically who I work with primarily. But we're so conditioned to take care of everything and everyone else other than ourselves. And we carry so much of not only what we have to deal with, but the burden of what other people are experiencing and dealing with.
Yes. We are like, we have like a backpack full of other people's like shit. And we just like add it in. We're like, hang on, you got shit, I got room. But yeah, and recently, old client of mine, like she's like, Kim, she's like, oh my God, I just recently lost like 30 pounds. And I was like, and she like struggled with her weight. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, I got happy.
Beautiful.
And it was just like, I love how like, in the moment, like we see things and, we can see, but a client needs to see it. And it's interesting how like, so many people discount what's going on between our ears, that we're like, it's just how my life is. It's who I am. Right. Going back to the identity thing. And then, over the course of time, some of the things that were just weighing on her have either she dealt with them or they finally resolved themselves. And she, was able to like, I always say like weight sometimes is kind of like a protection mechanism, that your body doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel that it's the time for you to not have, the weight is kind of like your armor, if you will.
1,000,000%. I just had a conversation on that exact topic with the client yesterday. And yeah, I do believe, I mean, our body, regardless of if you want to, look a certain way in a swimsuit, your body really doesn't care. It is here to help you survive and make it through life. And so if it's perceiving those stressors, whether they're external or internal, and oftentimes it's a combination of both, it's going to do whatever it needs to protect you. And I firmly believe that the mental and emotional toll that we experience throughout life manifests in that exact way, because our body seeks to protect us from those things as well.
Yeah. So, for people listening, we've meandered through like a cornfield or corn maze here. But, the biggest thing that Ali has shared with us is that, it's the mindset that keeps us stuck. And so we have to find a strategy that we can find adherence to. And, I think we both touched on it. It's not adherence for 6 weeks, right? It's adherence for like, what can you see doing for maybe the rest of your life, maybe 6 months, 9 months, because if you can't see yourself doing it 6 months, 9 months, you're going to be off to the next challenge, the next boot camp, the next. And our goal, I know, at least for mine, and just from my conversation here with Ali, our goal is like, how do we help our clients long term? Right. Like, because it's like, I know what it's like to go from one show to the next show, to the next show, to the next show, and then be lost. And that feeling sucks.
Yeah, 100%.
That feeling sucks. It's like you're just like a person without an island. Like you have like you're like cast adrift, and you're like, I don't know where land is.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and then that's when again thoughts start to get all buck wild.
You start drinking scotch on a Monday.
Right. Start and cigars, and you're like in a meeting, you're like, what's wrong? No one else does this. I brought more to share. Put it on the rocks are neat. So it's like we really have to kind of start to like put together like, what are our realistic expectations for us so that we can be excited about them.
Mhm.
We can make a plan for them. And at the end of the day, it's sustainability here.
Yeah.
So, Ali, if someone's like, all right, she said some great stuff to me. Um, where can they find you on the socials?
Yes. So I will say my most active platform right now is still Instagram. Haven't quite migrated over to the TikTok or any of the other platforms. I am on Facebook as well, but my handle is at Ali Cass Health. And then, yeah, I would love to connect with anyone who found this episode to resonate with them. I'm always looking to, again, I think much like you, Kim, educate people. And whether I work with someone or not, I want to bring value to the space because I think there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of surface level stuff going on in the industry. And so
Yeah,
I tried to kind of bust through some of that so people can stop, wasting their time and energy on things that aren't really going to move the needle for them. So I'm always, open to feedback and to suggestions about what people want to hear about, what's going to be helpful for them. So I love anytime I get to connect with others on social. And then my website is the same. It's www.alicashealth.com.
cool. Yeah. So, anybody follow her and just kind of like she has some interesting things that she posts about. And, we all like as you know, I only bring people on the show who I'm in alignment with, who I know that will help further the conversations of stop the insanity. Like just stop the insanity and like how do we become more simple so that weight loss doesn't always feel like you're on a, air quoting diet
Yeah.
here. So Ali, the one thing I always ask all of my guests, what is one thing that makes you feel magical?
Ooh. One, I'm almost finding it hard to just choose one thing. Honestly, I can think of so many external things, but I really think that it's just connecting with other people and having conversations that feel impactful, meaningful,
Mm,
and that are very growth oriented. I feel magical right now having this conversation with you, and I feel that same way anytime I can have a conversation like that with a client or just someone in general where I can tell that I'm able to give back and make that impact. And like you mentioned, further, the conversation in the direction that it needs to go. And so I think for
nice.
me, it's that connection really. And every time I feel, isolated myself, I constantly come back to that need for that connection.
Nice. No, I like that. I like that. I mean, everyone, I think that's also like in up there with like certainty and that connection piece. I think that's a huge human desire, need. I'm
Yes.
no psychologist, so for you psychologists, don't correct me.
I will say coffee and tacos also make me feel magical, but
I can't remember. I was reading an article and I need to go back to it. Again, caught up on the gram. There's a guy, I think it's Bon Appetit. There is a new position. It's called taco editor.
okay.
And he's going around the country like rating like who has the best tacos. And I was like, I could do that job.
I love that. It's funny you say that for a second. A couple years ago, I made an Instagram account and I was going to try to do that same thing with avocado toast. And so I had an account called Get Toasted, Stay Toasted. And it was like kind of a play off of, getting toasted, but also it was all
Right.
about avocado toast. And it was fun for about a month. And then I was like, yeah, I can't manage all of these platforms.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, we all have these like great intentions. And then you're like, hang on, I have to do it.
Yes. Nobody told me that.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I don't have a posse. Okay.
Right.
So that was a great idea, but it's on the shelf now.
Exactly.
All right, Ali, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was such a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Kim. It was great to be here. And thank you for everybody who's listening.
All right, Magic Makers. I, as always, love to hear your feedback about the show. Like, what was your one powerful takeaway? Do me a favor, I'll post it up on Facebook on the gram and be sure to tag myself and Ali with your takeaway. Enjoy the rest of your day.